I don't know if he mentioned,
He did.
but he was the first person I sold Bitcoin to.
He told me that, so he wanted to kind of say hi there.
Yeah,
He
I was
told
like,
me, and he
wow.
said, "Man, you need to tell this. You need to talk to Reuben about this." I said, "Okay, I will."
That's awesome.
How did you guys meet?
Oh, it was like, I don't know, maybe 2013, 2014, and wait, no, it was 2013 or 2012, around that period. And that time, there were no Bitcoin exchanges or anything like that, and I ran a VPN service, and it's called Bole VPN, and people were telling me you should accept Bitcoin because it's anonymous. And now we know it's not, but then people thought it was anonymous, right? And I was like, well, how do I convert this crap? Like what is this thing?
What was it worth back then? Was it already on the uptrend, or was it still like in like double digits?
I remember it was like $80, maybe $80 or $100, but not a lot of money. And regrettably, I converted all of it through using. He bought everything, and he got quite a good rate for it. And I was like, okay, I'm happy. I get my ringgits, and I can continue my business. And then I just got hooked, and then that's kind of how I met you. I can't remember how I exactly found him, but I remember messaging him on Skype. I'm like, hey, you want to buy some Bitcoin? And he was the only guy who would be paying me in ringgit because it was just so difficult then. Yeah.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Malaysia, and I'm actually still based in Malaysia. Yeah.
Okay. I thought Sebastian wrote to me. I think I'm not sure where he said you were. I thought you were in Burma or something.
Borneo.
Borneo,
which is I mean, Borneo has 3 countries in it, which is Indonesia, Brunei, and Malaysia. So I'm kind of in the land of monkeys and orangutans and things like that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't know, so yeah, wanted to know. Okay, hey, why don't we dive in?
Sure.
Talk to me a bit about, before we really go into kind of the nitty gritty part, talk to me a bit about how did you get into crypto? How did you, maybe, I don't know what came first. Was your love for privacy coins or was the love for Zcoin first? Talk to me about how did this happen? And then, let's kind of dig there and then let's build on top of that.
So a little embarrassing, but actually it kind of started because I love anime. It was kind of a bit of a long story, but to cut it short, I loved anime a lot, and I couldn't get it in my home country, which was censoring all these types of downloads. And I started a VPN business. And when I started that VPN business, it was made more for my own consumption. And then I just decided to share the server cost with a bunch of other people. And then it really took off. I think it became like one of the largest VPN providers in Southeast Asia. And that was really interesting. And when we got really big, we decided to do a privacy focus, especially about censorship. And my government, the Malaysian government, started at first it started quite innocuous, like, okay, let's censor pornography sites. Okay, fine. Okay, then let's censor P2P torrents. Okay. And then after that, they were starting to censor political, political opposition. So the censorship just ramped up and up and up and up. And I kind of founded this company, and from downloading anime, it became more about I'm protecting my freedoms here. And because we started going through that privacy focus, people were asking look, I don't want to pay through PayPal. I don't want to pay through all these methods that have all my information. Why don't you?
When was that? What year was that?
That was 2012, 2013, basically around that time. And I was like, okay, sure, if I can convert it into cash, and that's how I met using, and I started accepting it. I think I'm the first merchant probably in Malaysia to do that, and that's how I kind of got my feet wet in cryptocurrencies, and then I just went full in I started a little mining farm. I dealt with ant miners or even ASIC miner cubes and all sorts of exotic equipment. I got some of the first few Dash miners, it was really fun. And after that, I, was involved. I mean, not officially, but I was very big in the communities of Dash, and also NEM, and a bunch of other altcoins. But I really like Dash because originally, they were dark coin, privacy-based, ASIC resistance, and after that, it kind of changed focus. And I think around like late 2016, there was this project that came about that was about privacy, which was Zcoin, and I offered my services as just a community manager, get paid like 250 USD a month, like just for fun, And I was still a full-time lawyer there and was a partner at a law firm, so obviously that couldn't really be a full-time thing, and I just started evolving into the role, like from a community manager. Now I'm basically running the whole operations of Zcoin, and that's kind of it in a nutshell. Yeah.
Okay, I love that. Let's kind of lay this out a bit. Obviously, in the privacy coin sector, I'm a big privacy coin fan. I think that's one of the, so if I look at Bitcoin, right, and I'm also a big Bitcoin fan, I'm definitely not a maximalist, but I like Bitcoin. Sure. One of the biggest downsides Bitcoin, in my opinion, has is not so much the scalability. I think it's really the privacy features that Bitcoin is missing and definitely needs. And obviously, you working in this, I assume you agree. Let's talk to me a bit about the privacy features. Let's talk to me a bit about comparing them a bit to other coins. What are you focusing on Zcoin? I know, especially with Sigma, you have been really kind of putting a lot of thought into a lot of things. Talk to me a bit about this.
So, I mean, like, of course, I would say, the biggest threat to privacy coins like ours is if Bitcoin implements really good privacy, right? I mean, that is going to be the case. If something large like Bitcoin has all the liquidity and has really good privacy, then what's the point of all these privacy coins? And because we are Bitcoin based, it's hard to argue otherwise, right? But to achieve privacy, you often have to sacrifice certain things. Like, I think the first thing, the most important thing that probably that's why Bitcoin will never implement something that has good privacy is supply auditability, the ability to know how many coins are in existence. And once you start hiding amounts and things like that, which is kind of necessary in privacy, you kind of lose that ability. And Bitcoin has already suffered through two inflation bugs, one like the value overflow incident where a couple of trillion coins were created.
2010, I think, right? That was 2010.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And then after that, the other one where the Bitcoin Cash developer actually found a bug that could have inflated it. And even if it happened, it wouldn't have been that catastrophic because you could see the inflation where it came from. There's full auditability of Bitcoin. And also privacy technology also comes at the cost in terms of increased computation to do this type of privacy transactions, which reduces scalability. So I would say that it's a bit far-fetched for Bitcoin to have really advanced privacy solutions. I guess the best thing that we have right now is CoinJoin, Wasabi Wallet, all these massive types of CoinJoin, which are fine. But the problems with CoinJoin or mixing solutions is that you do need active participants. That means people actually have to actively want to mix, and that already puts you kind of in the minority. And your sort of anonymity set is restricted to the number of people that you're mixing with, right? So, and it doesn't really actually provide a very high level of privacy, because even if you have all these links and whatnot, you're just kind of hiding yourself in a crowd. It's just the links are still there. It's just kind of obfuscated, right? You're adding noise around it. And if you have any other sort of data points, that may actually de-anonymize you if I make repeated transactions with a person. I do feel that because blockchain is permanent, those sort of privacy solutions aren't that good. And that goes the same for stuff like Dash that uses a different version. It uses CoinJoin, but it uses masternodes to do that, which is fine. I mean, it's okay for casual privacy. Even Decred just recently, released their privacy solution that they were working on was secret, and turns out to be Coin Shuffle, which is, I guess, an improved version of CoinJoin. And I would say the main competitors would be coins like Monero and Zcash. I mean, these are the two big privacy coins, right? And Monero has as like improvements in the sense that it is still like a cryptographic mixer in the sense that, you know, you're still mixing stuff, except that you don't have to be an active participant. Like Monero just finds outputs to be used for their inputs automatically. So you don't have to be online, it just like creates that stuff. So it's a big improvement, but still the current ring sizes are like 11. So you're like hiding like 1 out of 11. And that may be okay for now, but you know, there's been increasing studies that this may not be enough. I mean, there's this like presentation that Ian Mayer's give called Satoshi Has No Clothes. He shows like the problems with this type of decoy transaction models as well. And similar, like Mimblewimble is kind of similar. It doesn't actually totally break the links. It just combines everything in one sort of large transaction, but the links are still kind of there. And especially if I'm a mining pool and I observe the network, I can, unless there's a large amount of transactions in the network, which isn't really happening in Grin or Beam right now, I can make certain inferences as to how those transactions were joined together. So I do think that none of these privacy solutions are, I mean, they're okay, they're not ideal. And when you're talking about blockchain privacy, when something is like permanently in the chain, you need long-lasting privacy. And that's why I feel stuff like zero-knowledge proofs are really important. So the way like Zcoin works, you take a coin, you destroy it, and anytime in the future, you can redeem them for brand new ones. So it's like these new coins they look like mine coins. They're just perfectly with no previous transaction history. And that means that, you know, there's no link. I'm not just hiding a link. It's like teleportation, like all these decoy systems are kind of like hiding in the crowd, while like we are like disappearing then reappearing at a different place. So that's obviously to us a much superior mode of privacy. Now I guess that kind of leaves us to Zcash, which also uses zero knowledge proofs, and they're really high anonymity sets, really good performance. And I mean, there's a reason why when everyone talks about ZK proofs, they immediately talk about ZK snaps and things like that. But it's not perfect. It still has many trade-offs. It uses very experimental cryptography. It uses really complex, like so complex that, you know, it's been criticized that it's been called moon math, that only a few people in this world understand. And because of the complex constructions, a bug could be inside and no one would know about it until maybe a few people will only know about it. And that actually happened. Like with the original Zcash like protocol, the Sprout protocol, there was a bug that was live for 2 years, a critical bug that could have allowed coins to be created out of thin air and not detected. I mean, that's pretty scary. But because, you know, so few people understood it, they didn't really win, or they think that no one was able to take advantage of it. And that's kind of like security through obscurity. They're also using experimental technology. So we at Zcoin are trying to cut a balance where we're trying to offer like really high anonymity. We still have the same like zero knowledge proofs, but we are like razor sharp focused. Like we're not going to do like ZK proof to prove anything. We're there just to prove like the protect blockchain privacy is like a singular purpose for this type of zero knowledge proofs. And what that allows us to have very simple construction. So like, you know, you can build a proof of concept of Sigma or Atlantis or technology in a couple of weeks. I mean, because people get it, people understand it, and it's good that people get and understand it. It means that there are less components that go wrong. The cryptography that we use is based on discrete log assumption, basically one of the most fundamental cryptography building blocks. So there's no like, you know, people aren't saying, oh, is this like fancy crypto? I mean, if that breaks, like most of your crypto nowadays would break in general. So yeah, I guess that's like the main difference of us. We're offering high anonymity, and we feel like it's a more responsible and like a conservative approach to privacy. Yeah.
Talk to me about, I mean, you had one of the privacy, you had a privacy issue in April, or at least you kind of spoke about this. And it's always, when I speak to other projects, right, that's always what that's normal, right? Projects, they love to point out weaknesses in other projects instead of something
Definitely.
their own, right? So do you want to talk to me about this? I would love to understand
Sure.
what happened, I felt your response was really good. I think also that the way you reacted, I think it's fair. What was the potential damage that was done? How going forward? What are the things you would love to improve there?
So yeah, I think that was a really, really good lesson for us. I mean, you have to realize that, I mean, you know, we when we started Zcoin, you know, it was just one person, one singular coder. We've had like a master's in information security. We didn't have any, you know, back then in 2000, like when this project kind of started was 2014, and then we only launched in 2016. Everyone was creating their own coins, right? And we were trying to implement something on Zcoin. And I guess it was kind of naive, like, you know, retrospectively looking like, how could we have expected to do this with just, you know, one or two guys? And, you know, obviously now it's obvious that isn't the case. But even so after Zcoin was implemented, you know, we found flaws in it, and those mostly of those were implementation flaws. That means we didn't implement it correctly, but we also actually found some cryptographic flaws where we engaged a cryptographer to look through the Zcoin cryptography. And academic papers actually resulted from this research saying, oh, these are potential attack vectors on Zcoin. You could, like, you know, hijack other people's coins, and these are the ways to fix it. So it's not as if that we did not do our due diligence. We hired cryptographers to look at it. And it was not just us. PayVax and other projects were also hiring cryptographers to look at the Zcoin protocol, see you know, vulnerabilities, and also improve the protocol. So it wasn't a dead protocol by any means. But what happened was in 2019, in April, basically, someone found a cryptographic flaw in the original Zcoin protocol itself. And yes, you know, we've already like plugged all these other holes, but there was this really kind of obscure part of the proof that, in retrospect, because when you read the Zcoin paper, you understand how it works. You understand how it all ties together. But certain portions of the Zcoin protocol were not fully described in the Zcoin paper. They were only described partially, like in code in their software library. And if you just look at it, you're like, yeah, that makes sense, and people move on. I mean, like, you're talking about top-level cryptographers looking at it and just saying, that's fine, we assume it's fine. And in a way, we also kind of, at that time, you know, we were kind of in awe, like, because like these people like Ian Mayers, Matthew Green, these are top world-class cryptographers that came out with this protocol. I mean, Paramin, our founder, was a student of Matthew Green, right? You're like, am I going to challenge the master and assume that it's wrong? I mean, in retrospect, we should have done that, but we kind of assume that this is created by world-class cryptographers. Who are we to challenge it? But when we actually went through the thing, they were like, wow, there are certain missing components in this Zcoin protocol, and it took like 5 years for someone to actually find a flaw in it and exploit it. So, you know, I think it was really good in the sense that we detected it relatively quickly. The total damage maximum is about 69,000 coins, and I think our supply is about 8.4 million now, so it's a lot less than 1%, I suppose, of circulating supply. So luckily, we were able to lock it down. And it's also partly because we have some degree of supply auditability when we force people to redeem the coin. So we could tell, like, hey, that number doesn't really add up. So that's also an added benefit of Zcoin. And what happened then was we had to, you know, also of course say that there was a problem with Zcoin. We had to get the mining pools to sort of shut down the Zcoin processing. We had to tell them, like, look, that's a problem. Could you just like turn off your Zcoin processing, which is kind of like semi-centralized, but it wasn't that easy to do it anyway because all these pools were wondering, so why am I turning it off? Tell me. And we had to be kind of honest, but not like cause panic and this leak of information or so. Right now, so we took about, I don't know, like a couple of, like 2 weeks or maybe like less than that to actually find the flaw. And we built our patch, and we actually formed a working group with other coins that were using Zcoin and disclose the flaw to them, which kind of bit us in the ass later because one of the other projects jumped the gun and made a premature disclosure, which kind of really affected, well, we were protected, They were protected because they could turn it off. They had like a master switch to turn off Zcoin off and on, which was we don't have. But other projects like Veil and whatnot, they did not have that master switch and were potentially vulnerable because of this premature disclosure.
Was that PIVX?
Yes, that's right. They have their own excuse that it was not, there was not intentional and all this sort of stuff. I mean, we had a talk I had a talk with Jackie Mann, and he said, well, he didn't mean it and whatnot. It was poor coordination. But I found it really, like, it was not professional. And we had created a group. We had shared everything with you, and you had to just jump the gun to be the first to announce this vulnerability. And I found that a bit kind of discouraging, right? But yeah,
I followed that. I was also a bit surprised. I didn't know, obviously I didn't know the backstory only until afterwards. I was like, that was strange, but afterwards.
Yeah, but I mean, like, okay, move on by on. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. There was an honest mistake. I don't know. I mean, they apologized, fine. But it kind of illustrated the difficulties of responsible disclosure combined, because at the same time, so I could have just, like, we knew about this thing, we could have destroyed all these other coins. We could just use this flaw, hack them to death, and they were competitors. Huh?
Why didn't you?
No, well, we just didn't think that it was right to do so, and they we also couldn't do it if we wanted to, because PIVX had a spot to turn off Zcoin. What we actually took, because they were about to re-enable their Zcoin. So PIVX had actually disabled their Zcoin because they had been attacked by a different attack, implementation problem, and they were about to re-enable it. And we were like saying that, keep it disabled, please, because we think there's a flaw. Because if they re-enabled it, we could have hacked them, right? Or anyone could have hacked them, but we're like saying, please keep it disabled. And we also wanted to do that so that you can't accuse us, because we told you, before you were vulnerable, we're telling you, keep it disabled, just trust us on this, keep it disabled. And we told all the projects that we were aware of about this issue that we trusted. Yeah. So after that, I think so 69,000 coin was the maximum damage so far, because we managed to blacklist in the hard fork when we converted the Sigma, and it was really lucky in the sense that we were already moving to Sigma. Like, it was already in the plan, and we didn't really want to.
Able to pin it down to 69,000 coins. How do you know the exact amount?
So that was really interesting. So if you had exploited the flaw correctly, what you would have been able to make perfect forgeries of the coins. And that is, like, if you understood completely the cryptographic flaw. The person who exploited us, he kind of like saw a symptom of it and didn't exploit it. Like, he tried, he sort of like played around and somehow like stumbled across this. As a result, his attack, the coins that he created had like a unique taint to it. It was like slightly inflated in value, and only because of that we could tell, 69,000 coins were created, because we know all those coins were forged.
But and therefore, you didn't find out who was behind this.
I mean, it was a hacker. I wouldn't name him, just to give him the pleasure of giving the finding it. I mean, maybe he deserves some credit for that. And he was actually the guy. He claims to be the guy that also hacked PIVX with the different implementation about the wrap series bug. So he then attacked us, but he said our flaw was a lot harder to find because it was not the implementation flaw, but a cryptographic flaw. So we have the 69,000 coins, and after that, we had this process to convert Zcoins into Sigma mints, and through that process, of course, we blacklist all those ones that we knew were forged. And so far, it looks like the damage is 54,000. Slightly less than what we anticipated. Still bad, but not the end of the world. And I'm just glad that we took it. So I guess the next question is, what are the lessons that we learned from this entire experience? I mean, first of all, when you're looking through a new protocol, don't be in a rush to implement it. Sometimes there's this rush to keep on coming out with new features and push it out as quick as possible, and that often leads to mistakes. And But in this case, Zerocoin was like around for like quite a long while. But what actually we made a mistake of believing too much in the people behind the paper and not examining every single small component of the paper and saying, is there a security proof of this? Is there a proof of this? Is this properly described? Blah, 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 blah. And we just like took it at face value. Now, like if you take a look at the way Sigma is described in the one of many proofs paper, or there's another paper called Short Accountable Ring Signatures based on DDH. The documentation is really well. Everything is fully documented within the paper, every single portion, and every single portion has a security proof. Compared to the Zerocoin paper where you look this and then you had to look at this other paper and this other paper, and it was like just kind of like a mess, you know. So I guess that's like a really, really important lesson, to make sure that we have to fully understand every single component, not just understand how it works, but like almost like put a magnifying glass to every single component of it, which is what we did with Sigma. I'm not saying that, you know, we'll be perfectly, you know, impervious to it, but it gives us like, okay, you know, we're not going to repeat this mistake again. And it also goes to show like the benefits of having a simple construction. You know, such as Sigma, which is really, really, really simply
definitely
constructed. Yeah.
Okay, it sounds, yeah. I mean, there's always lessons, and I think there's always speed bumps, and I think that's totally normal. So no, I was on the one hand, it was very interesting to see, obviously, how you guys responded to that. I think you did I mean, you can always do a better job, but I think you did a good job. I think this was no, it was fair. How's the community now? Do you feel is the community is the community skeptical? Is the community, they're like, okay, no, hey, you know what, this happens, let's go on, let's move on from there? How is the community?
Well, actually, most of the community are totally okay with it. I mean, of course, it's a bummer. Well, I think they were relatively supportive of it. I think the
and
only
0.5%, I think 0.5% inflation is, yeah, it's not the end of the world. Yeah,
it's not the end of the world, and you know, no funds were lost. I mean, I guess everyone like kind of lost like a little bit, 1% of inflation of their value, but that happens in crypto every day, right?
Yeah.
And I think the way that we, like, it was interesting, like, because, you know, the haters like the shit on us on it. And,
you
like,
always, I mean, of course, that's
I
what
mean,
the
that's
haters are
normal.
there for.
That's fine, but we actually got a lot of street cred from this disclosure. Like, cryptographers actually say, like, good job, you did a really good job with the disclosure. It was not an easy flaw to find, and you did responsible disclosure. You could have, like, you know, messed with all these other coins, but instead you disclosed it responsibly and resolved the problem really well, because I know we solved that problem really almost in record time, and I think it kind of shows how Zcoin has grown from like a one-man team into like a really professional team with people with cryptographic experience. We now have like a research labs and all this type of things as well. So
how is this all governed? I mean, this is a question that I have in general. I think always very interesting is to look at how blockchains, like, what's the governance of the blockchain? Because I mean, that's one of the trickiest things I always find in a system that tries to be decentralized, right? And so as soon as there's people involved, it's so difficult to, on the one hand, keep leadership, but on the other hand, have decentralization in there. How does the governance work?
So realistically, I mean, like, I don't think any project, maybe the closest you would get is possibly like Bitcoin, right? And even then, it's like not perfectly decentralized. And, you know, I mean, you saw the whole blockchain block size debate and like, you know, the decision to go into Lightning. I mean, like it or not, there's been a certain, you know, it's like there's a small group of people then moving that narrative, and it's okay, fine, that's kind of normal. So, but with Zcoin, I think we're quite realistic in the sense that I would like to step back from doing all these things, but honestly, the foundations of Zcoin has not been fully laid out yet. Like, you know, we're just like coming out of Sigma and now like Lelantis, and I would say right now, like a lot of the decisions come lays on me, but I always make it a point to say, all right, like, you know, before I make any sort of like really, really large decision, I will always consult the community, and it's not just through the forums, through Telegram communities, you know, through, you know, all this type of things. And if you take a look at the way that we report on our development, there is very, very little that is secret. We tell them about our Atlantis development. We tell them about these are the features that we are working on and stuff like that. And if anyone says like, no, that's bullshit, like there was actually this one time that we were thinking maybe we should build like smart contract stuff on Zcoin, and the community was like, really? Do you think that's a good idea? You know, why don't you just focus on privacy? And we were like, yeah, that's a good point. Why didn't we just focus on privacy? So I would say that yes, you know, at this point in time, it's really heavily reliant on the development team, which is actually the case in most projects right now. But I would say that we are pretty receptive to listening to what our community has to say, because we realize that if we just bulldoze everything through and you know, no one's going to believe in our project. Ideally, this is a really thing that I don't think anyone has solved right now. Like I've you know, I've gotten involved much more in the Monero community lately, and I think they're like decently decentralized, I would say, Monero, you know, but there's still, you know, a bunch of core developers that have very, very large influences that can even like decide on hard fork dates or what's the next algo that they're going to fork to. So yeah, it's more decentralized than us, but still not quite. There's still a small group of people determining it. And I do think that it's about making sure that the community has avenues and discussions before any sort of major decisions are made. Now, what that looks like in the future, I'm not really sure, because, you know, when we talk about decentralized governance models, like we're looking at like Dash, that's it was an interesting experiment, but I think it's now just like a bunch of whales and maybe like, you know, their dev team like dictating what they wanted. Okay, fine. You know, I don't think it was like malicious, but that's just kind of how masternodes are set up to be, which is why you notice that although we have masternodes, we don't have those governance and voting stuff. I think Decred has a really interesting solution where, you know, you stake and you get tickets to do it. But it's also like really technical, and only like a small group of people can actually sort of like understand these proposals and push it through. And like, you know, you talk about decentralized governance, like they came out with their private, they spent like, they said years developing this privacy protocol in secret. How is that decentralized governance? You decided to dedicate your resources, took funding from the block reward to develop this thing in secret. That's not decentralized governance, it's just like talk of decentralized governance. So I don't think anyone's actually really solved it. Bitcoin's quite simple because they're not supposed to change very much, but for a coin that has a lot of new technologies and stuff like that, right now you still kind of need some sort of centralized like decision making. But I think it's important to like make sure that, you know, we're not being assholes. And obviously everything that we do, we've been actually making like a lot more strides in being a lot more transparent on the GitHub boards. You can see exactly what we're working on. We give like, you know, like every month we give like 2 updates or so to what we're working on. We always ask for feedback. So I think that's the kind of way that we can say like decentralized governance, making sure their feedback. And obviously our code is open source. So everything is open. So if anyone doesn't like what we do, we can be forked off, and who knows, right? Yeah.
I agree.
But what's your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think, honestly, I think Bitcoin is as decentralized as it's probably gonna get. I think it's very difficult to be. I mean, decentralization is difficult. It is difficult because by definition it means no one is in charge, and that just means no one is in freaking charge, so nothing happens. Yeah, no, I agree. Hey, you mentioned masternodes. So obviously, we at Cake, we host masternodes and we allow people to stake them. Talk a bit about Zcoins consensus algorithms, and talk a bit what's the role of masternodes in there, so that people also understand that.
So, I mean, originally, I mean, we are a proof of work. You know, we have MTP, which is an ASIC resistant algorithm and things like that. We can talk more about that later. But when we originally came out with the idea of Znodes, zero coin transactions are not small. They're like 25 kilobytes large, which is like 50 times larger than a Bitcoin transaction. The verification time is very, very high for a zero coin transaction. It's like, at that time, it was 400 milliseconds and things like that. And we were like thinking, look, you know, we need to make sure that our infrastructure is sufficiently incentivized to maintain these more high performance nodes, right? And there was this whole idea of maybe like delegating some of the verification to the masternode layer so that like nodes that didn't have those specs, like a Raspberry Pi or not, could at least choose if they wanted to just trust what the masternodes were giving them. But of course, if they had a sufficiently powered stuff, they could verify it themselves. That was the original idea of masternodes. But it didn't came to being because when Sigma came about and all this other stuff, they were like, oh, actually, this is relatively efficient still. You know, it's like we didn't really need this. But I do think that what Dash has recently done in relation to chain locks, LMQ chain locks, which basically act as a protection against 51% attacks, and it's almost like constant checkpointing, right? Where that means like if I want to do a double spend transaction, I would need both to take over the master nodes and also the hash rate, which is a lot harder.
Yeah.
And for a smaller like coin like us, I think 51% attacks are a lot more likely. Like then let's say something like Bitcoin, obviously, right? And especially when we are using like commodity hardware like GPUs where you can run hash rate and mine our coin. I think we are particularly vulnerable to that. So I think chain locks are great for that. The instant transactions that masternodes provide are great. And I do think that, as our, we still have some ideas as to where we are using our mobile development to sort of pull on masternodes that have a shortcut, to have some, they don't have download entire sets or something like that. But yeah, so that's how we see where the masternodes are paid to maintain the infrastructure of the blockchain, while the proof of work still provides the security and the decentralization, and more importantly, the distribution of the coin. And yeah, I don't see it as playing as at this point in time, not a huge role in governance at this point in time, because I just don't want a bunch of whales to dictate what this coin does, and that would just kill decentralized governance completely. I only have some sort of fake governance in that matter. So yeah.
Have you ever looked into, I mean, that's something that I spoke a lot with Ryan from Dash about. Have you ever looked into switching away from proof of work, or is this, I mean, that's what basically Dash is trying to do. Is this something you have explored, or you're like, no, this makes no sense at the moment?
I mean, for us, because we are meant to be a currency, right? We're not a utility platform or things like that. If you want to be a currency, you need to have distribution, and currently I find it really hard to beat distribution through proof of work.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair. Like you can get coins just by turning on your computer and your GPU, plug in some electricity, and even in censored countries, you can get some amount. And that may seem small to them, but like in places like Venezuela or some of these countries, it's a meaningful amount for them.
Sure.
Like they make like $100, $200 a month. That can feed their family. So I think that's pretty important as well. And one of the issues, I guess, like, I don't think proof of stake has solved everything. I mean, like, obviously, you take a look at how hard Ethereum has tried to solve the whole nothing at stake problem and all this sort of things. And we have all these high performance blockchains, which are fine. I mean, if you're about smart contracts or like gambling apps and things like that, maybe you don't need that level of decentralization. But like for those DPoS systems and things like that, right, where you're kind of centralizing control to a bunch of nodes. So I really think that I'm still pro proof of work, in the sense that there's a fair distribution of coins as much as we can make it. I don't think proof of stake solves distribution unless we have fiat gateways in every single country that have like good liquidity and everything, and then maybe something like proof of stake starts making sense. But I don't think we've reached that level just yet. Yeah,
that's fair. You mentioned a bit of the use cases. In my research, I noted that you have quite some adoption and quite some use case in Thailand.
Yes.
Talk to me about this. Talk to me about the use cases that you see. Why do you think Thailand, and what do you see going forward? Like, I really, like, I think we covered a bit of the basics, the background. Let's talk a bit about the now and really talk about going forward. What are the things you would love to see, the directions you're taking this? Let's kind of dig there a bit.
I mean, because I like to see, I mean, primarily, I mean, this is my own personal views. I mean, Zcoins is what people want it to be, and we're kind of agnostic in that regard. I would like to see as a way to transfer value privately, throughout the world, right? But obviously, I think that's pretty controversial. People always talk about anti-money laundering, terrorist funding, and all this negative things, or like drug trades and things like that. But the privacy technology is, well, of course, I do think privacy is a basic right. We should not be giving our data out to the public. But we really like voting applications, and I'm going to be quite cautious when I talk about voting applications, because right now, like, everyone's like, voting on the blockchain is the best idea ever, and like even Andrew Yang, one of the presidential candidates, like saying we should move the American system, a voting system, onto the blockchain and voting. I think that's a horrible idea. Even though we did it, like we didn't do a national election, we did Thai Democrat Party internal election that involved all its Democrat Party members, which meant like 127,000 votes being casted on Zcoins blockchain. And I think it's a great use case where the threat level isn't so high, right? When you're talking about national elections, it's not just about, blockchain only solves one bit of it, which is the storage of the non-tampering of the votes, and that's it. That's all that it solves. It doesn't solve like, how do I make sure that the data that's entering into the blockchain is valid? Or if I insert a backdoor into your software or hardware, or like, something intercepts and records it garbage in, garbage out, right? So I think we have to be a bit careful there, but blockchain use in elections are pretty cool, and we plan to make that a lot easier, because so now we have this something called Exodus layer, which allows people to generate their own tokens on Zcoin. And what that will allow them to do is to also use our Sigma privacy technology. That means I can say, all right, I have a vote of 20,000 people. Let's create a bunch of coins, like a separate coin, base it on the Zcoin platform, and now people can use the Sigma technology to vote one way or another, or several options, and they can do it in a way that is both verifiable but anonymous, using our zero knowledge proof technology. So I think it's a great use case for, I would
fantastic
say,
use case. I love the use case on a blockchain. Yeah,
medium level threat levels. I would say that would be great, and that's one of the things that we would like. There have been some people that have been interested in building stable coins on that platform and having privacy features. So that's quite interesting. I'm not sure how I feel personally about that, but that's kind of like a Tether, like a USDT with privacy features. I don't know, maybe that sounds interesting as well, but it's pretty controversial. But the platform's there. And we've also been, recently we've been like kind of there's been a huge take up in mobile payments in Asia in particular. Like, just in the past few years, we've seen massive uptake in mobile payments. And in China, like WeChat Pay, Alipay has almost like replaced cash in certain areas, right? And even in Thailand, where they have a national QR code system called PromptPay, with half of their population on it. So the level of adoption of mobile payments is really there. And what we saw was, okay, we can go through like the Bitcoin or Dash model, go through merchants and extol to them the virtues of cryptocurrencies and why you should be accepting them, and educate them how to use wallets and deal with the volatility. I think that's like a really, really high bar. Like, if you told me that I couldn't convert this Bitcoin into cash easily, I had to go to the exchange and then transfer it, and then how to account for it, I'd be like, fuck it, I'm not going to deal with this, right? Which is why I have to be comfortable in just receiving cash for it, or like, fiat cash for it, and be happy enough that I'm receiving it enough times that I'm like, I think this is a valid payment platform. Maybe I should keep some Bitcoin or whatever coin I'm receiving in its native form. So what we did was we had an integration with PromptPay, which allows us to spend at any of the places that have this QR code system, which is basically like currently like 5 million merchants that has it. So it's still a centralized solution where it's converted from Zcoin to Thai baht, and Thai baht goes to the merchant. But it's a start, similar to like credit cards, it's not a perfect solution, but it is a way to increase cryptocurrency adoption. And the beautiful thing is that all these national QR code systems are starting to be linked with each other. Like, for example, Singapore has its own QR code system called PayNow. And now they've been talking about integration with Thailand's PromptPay. So what that means is that suddenly, if I can just leverage into this existing network and, like, you know, pay with Zcoin at any of these stores with them not having to worry about volatility or things, that makes cryptocurrency more legit, because if I can spend it everywhere, even if it's like, you know, conversion, it makes it a lot more real, because that's how people feel. If I can spend it at the store down the road, that's real adoption, right? And I think that's amazing. Now, the current system that we have works, but there are some bugs. There are certain QR code types that we don't totally support. And actually, Box Mining actually did a feature. He went to Thailand and tried to use our system. We had some successes and some failures, which was quite funny. You should watch it. It's good fun, and it kind of highlights, like, you know, the challenges that we have to get through. It's not perfect, still like in beta, but I do think it's definitely a step in the right direction. Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. What else is on the roadmap? Talk to me a bit about what are the dreams? Where should this entire project go? Like, holders of the coin, users, people who don't hold a coin. Like, what's the vision here?
I mean, right now we've kind of like battened down the hatches and decided that we really want to focus on our privacy technology, right? And now that may seem like a niche market. Like, everyone's like, oh, your privacy, okay, you're a privacy coin. But I don't know, I feel like stuff like Cambridge Analytica or like the Netflix thing, like the Great Hack, have started people thinking about what privacy means to them, you know, what it actually means as a target. And you know, when you start seeing like WeChat Pay that actually gives so much controls to the government and institutions over control of our money. And should we be trusting this institution? I mean, we know we shouldn't be trusting Facebook. Governments have been proven also not to be trustable as well. And I don't see as privacy coins as like anti-government or anti-institutions, but I see it more as a check and balance. And you're German, right? So Germany has traditionally resisted digital money and they love cash. And I found it really interesting that they valued it, not because they're tax evaders or anything like that, but because they saw it as an important check and balance with the state.
I agree.
And
I mean, they have gone through, I mean, not people at my age, but our grandparents, they have gone through some very, very rough times with the government, right? So I think they like cash. Yeah, like you say, I think as a statement of freedom, a statement of, well, this is my privacy. I agree.
Yes, correct. And, you know, I would say, like, you know, I don't think Germany are famous for money laundering or illegal activities or you know, being like that. And I think the only other country which like hoards cash is Japan, but not for privacy reasons, for other reasons. But I really found it interesting that, you know, it is seen as a check and balance between like government powers and the citizen, because right now, you know, there's this increasing worrying trend where we accept governments as our rulers, when actually, like, if we see ourselves as democracies, the people should be the rulers. And I do think freedom of money and the ability to, like, you know, live a life in a private life and not be like highlighted and censored, because all of us are not perfect, you know, like, and we have things that we may not be proud of or we make mistakes in. It's like, you know, a lot of people say, oh, you're only doing illegal things, that's why you're hiding. But like, look, you know, I like singing in the shower. Do I want everyone to hear that? Probably not, you know. Do you want to live in a glass house and let everyone see what you're doing in the home? Once you get that, or like if I pay someone with coffee, do I want him to know, oh, I possibly have 100 Bitcoin? I think that's a real privacy breach. And once people start thinking about it, I really want people to see Zcoin as a potential way to say, okay, this is the real money or real asset class that I can hold freely and transact in a like a uncensored manner, like more so than Bitcoin. And I would also like to see that, you know, like people building like, you know, voting applications and cool applications of privacy technology on our platform, because I just think that's damn cool. And even if someone decides to do like a USDT or a private USDT, I think that's, you know, dangerous but pretty exciting as well. Like you could have like a private version of Libra, and that may be interesting as well. Yeah.
I love that. No, I 100% agree. I love that direction. I think that's a very, very important direction. I love that. Hey, Room, at the end, what do you do in your private life, in your personal life? I always ask that because, you know, most people always know us from like crypto and from blockchain, and but I don't know, we have things other than blockchain. You mentioned anime at the beginning. What do you do in your personal life? Like, what are your hobbies? What are your interests?
I actually run an Aikido dojo, so I teach martial arts as well.
Wow, I didn't know that. Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, I play like computer games, not as much as before, but I used to play a lot of Overwatch, so that's good fun. But nowadays I just like chilling, you know, watching Netflix and anime. Now I don't have.
What are your favorite shows?
Huh?
What are your favorite shows on Netflix?
I'm watching something called. I watched Castlevania, which was pretty good, and there's another one called Goblin Slayer. It's trash, but it's entertaining. But yeah, you know, I'm not proud that I watched this stuff, but it's sometimes you just need to turn off your mind and enjoy some fantasy, right? But yeah, I used to do boxing and things like that, so I'm pretty into martial arts. And actually, it was really interesting because I just came back from a holiday in Athens. I went to Santorini in Athens, and someone tried to pickpocket me, and so I defended myself. And
really?
Yeah, that was quite cool. Interesting experience. Yeah.
Wow, man. Hey, I really love that. Hey, I think I would love to call this at this time. I think people really had a nice, almost full hour. Any last words, any parting wisdom that you want to give to the Zcoin community, to people that maybe don't know that coin so well yet, but might get interested? Hopefully staking on our platform, obviously, but
Sure.
What is the wisdom?
I mean, I would really like, of course, like, you know, staking is an excellent way to, you know, people see as passive income and things like that. And it's great to know that, you know, I'm just holding it and earning some interest out of it. But I hope that people also not just look at it as an investment platform, but what actually they're providing. They're providing infrastructure for really good privacy coin. I honestly believe that our privacy, like, if not the best, would be among the top 3 or so. You know, I really believe in what we are actually like fighting for is not just about moon price. And I feel that like this bear market has kind of like weeded out of those, and those people that are with us, of course they want to see the price go up, but they are also in it for ideals that they believe in. And I really hope that people understand the nuances, because sometimes, well, I know as Zcoins as a project has been really honest and transparent, and sometimes that bites us in the ass. You know, we don't leak information about our releases to like our seed investors, or even we don't like do it ourselves, and like we don't manipulate the markets. We don't even have market makers, and sometimes, you know, that bites us badly. Like people are like, why isn't there a pump? You know, when we released Sigma, there was no pump. When we did like the Thai Democrat Party thing, there was no pump. I mean, in any other project, that would have resulted like, you know, you just say, oh, I have a partnership with IBM or something, and it goes bam 2-3 times. And I was like, Thai Democrat Party first world political election, minus 1%, you know. So I hope that people like realize that, you know, we are not there to scam people's money. We're here to really build something that for the long term. And I would like to see Zcoin live. And realistically, I think it's going to be it's a very competitive market. But, you know, we just have to, I hope that we don't ever have to give up our values to achieve those purposes that we have. And I hope people appreciate our transparency as well. Yeah.
I love that, man. That's that's some really, really nice words. Yeah. Hey, Reuben, thanks for coming on, sharing that. I really appreciate that. Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much for having me, Julian.
Thank you.